Yes, hi guys. Welcome to today's session. My name is Mark Orina. Really excited to have you guys here today as we begin. Let's wait for all the other people to come in. I think we'll begin, then they'll catch up as we go on today. I hope you guys have had an amazing week. I have doing this and also hosting, so it's a busy weekend, but really excited to have you guys after the Pwani Community Day. It's been an amazing time. Really excited to have seen all you guys there. And one of the people I met during the specific community day was Belinda. She's really amazing. I really liked her talk, and I thought she'd also be able to share. Before I even do that, just a few housekeeping rules. First thing is, I'll be able to share a few announcements at the end of the call, just about being a community builder, the student builder benefits that are there. If you want to kind of plug into that, the AWS Joburg Summit, a few people went there, and also the Builder Grant that's coming up, and just talk about a few of the exciting things that are going to be happening. So stay tuned for that. What we'll do is I'll introduce Belinda. She'll do her presentation. Then once she's finished, we'll be able to do the announcements then. All right. I hope that sounds good. Yes, so I'll honestly begin and just introduce Belinda, then we can go on from there. There we go. All right. So for today's session, it's called Architecting for Business Value with AWS Well-Architected Framework. This is really exciting for me, especially for developers who are either biased towards being more technical and not showing enough value. How are you able to do that? And also, if you're still a beginner, this would be really exciting. A lot. So about Belinda. Belinda is a cloud engineer, DevOps engineer, first-year community builder, and she's an amazing trackster so far. She's doing an amazing job with that. Really excited to have her here. And if you've seen her, go follow her or not on Instagram rather, but on LinkedIn. I don't know if you want people to follow you on Instagram yet, Belinda, but she'll share her LinkedIn. She's doing an amazing job in terms of being consistent with what she posts and also her upskilling journey and building in public. That's why I'm really excited to have her here today. The other thing is, I think she's been a very vibrant community member, sharing her stuff, and I really love what she's doing. So she's such an inspiration. Without further ado, I will let Belinda just take it away as we go on today. So Belinda, hello, Karibu. Welcome to today's session.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Next time I'll have my LinkedIn, my Instagram link ready for you guys to also follow me on Instagram. And I hope everyone can hear me clearly.
Can hear you perfectly. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, nice. So, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, everyone from wherever you are joining us from. And I'm really excited for this today's session because actually it's a session where we are going to learn from each other. You're going to learn from me. I'm also going to learn from you. And I'm going to begin with a story so that we can get a grasp or a mindset into what we're going to be talking about today. So imagine it's a Monday morning and you are sitting at your desk, and when you just receive a call from an owner of a small retail shop, maybe here in Kenya or maybe where you live, maybe you're in another country. So she says, I'll use Orina's name. She says, Orina, I need help. So we are losing sales because we keep running out of stock. My employees write sales in notebooks, and sometimes they use Excel, sometimes they use WhatsApp to update us on maybe the stocks and the stockouts. And sometimes, honestly, I don't even know what is actually in my shop. So she is not asking you to define services or maybe tell us the services that you're going to use. She doesn't care if you're going to use Lambda or DynamoDB or Kubernetes. So she just asked one very simple question: can you solve my business problem? That is her question. Now, and I think that question changes everything because sometimes as cloud engineers or DevOps engineer, platform engineers, SRE engineers, our developers or even architects, we become so excited about technology that we accidentally begin with the tools instead of the problem. And today I want us to reverse that thinking. And for those maybe who are joining, my name is Belinda Ntinyari, and as Orina said before, I am a cloud and DevOps engineer. I also do tech webinars, teaching around cloud, and I'm also a first year community builder with AWS. And I build using AWS, Python, and Terraform, and other tools as well. So I have become, for the past few months, I've actually become fascinated by something deeper, not just how we build systems, but why we choose one architecture over another. And at this point, let me introduce my slides so that we can all follow on what I'll be talking about today. Can you see my screen?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So over the next 1 hour, I am going to invite you into what I'm calling the architect's decision room. And together we will take one business problem, translate it into technical requirements, compare 3 completely valid architectural approaches, debate trade-offs, and reveal the architecture I personally going to. So whether you are a student building your first cloud project, a DevOps engineer automating infrastructure, or someone already making architectural decisions in production, the question we will keep coming back to is, are we choosing technology because it's exciting or because it creates business value? Now, let's begin. So every cloud architecture starts long before the AWS console opens. And the thing that we start with is a single question. What problem are we actually solving? And before I learned cloud, I used to think good engineers were people who knew most services. Like if you know 100 of them, or maybe 150, because AWS has very many services actually, and you may get caught in the loop of trying to learn all the services in AWS cloud. And the more services, I thought the more services you knew, the better engineer you are. Then I started building. And suddenly I realized something. Knowing 200 AWS services doesn't automatically mean you will make a good architectural decision, because if you solve the wrong problem beautifully, you will still solve, you have still solved the wrong problem. And I want us to think about building a house. So imagine somebody walks into your office, you are an architect, and they say that they want to build a house. You just don't bolt out and go to the nearest hardware and say that, and tell them to give you the best cement that they have. No. What are you going to do? You're going to sit that person down and walk with them through what they need. You will listen to them and ask them several questions like, how many people are going to live in that house? What's their budget? Is their family growing? And will the family, is it like a temporary stay? Maybe they will move later in life. You like to know some of those answers to some of those questions. And you also ask them also an important question like, do they need accessibility? So that you can know if you introduce you today. Meet Konamat. Konamat is a small retail business with very big goals. And I don't want you to misquote me. Kindly, Konamat is not an existing business. It's just a fictional one. So it's just a fictional business, but everything about it is inspired by situations many small businesses experience every day. And it is a growing retail shop. They sell household goods, food items, toiletries, drinks, and so more. So customers come in throughout the day. Products move quickly, employees are busy, the owner is busy, and business is actually doing okay. So the problem isn't lack of customers. No, the problem is visibility. They don't always know what is in stock. They don't always know what has been sold. And they often discover shortages after the customer has already discovered I need 2 kgs of sugar, and the attendee goes to the shelf and they find out that the sugar is not there. So what do? They come and tell you the sugar is not there. So that's when maybe even the attendee is getting to know that there's no sugar in the shop. So you will find that your customers are discovering maybe some of your shortcomings as a shop before even you know about it. So that's exactly the kind of business pain we are trying to solve here. So notice something important. Konamat is not asking us to modernize for the sake of modernization. They are asking us to improve how the business operates. And so before we think cloud, let's look at how they are currently working. And whatever they are doing right now, it's a manual workflow, which is time consuming, it's prone to errors, and at the long run, it's very, very costly. So a customer comes and buys cooking oil. The employee writes it in the notebook. Later, someone remembers that they should update the stock. Maybe they send a WhatsApp message about it, and someone else says, I will update the Excel when I am free. So Excel becomes the that one employee who is always blamed for everything, because you will find yourself that maybe you updated the Excel 2 days ago, and the Excel is just sitting there pretty, waiting for you to update it. And if you don't update it and discover maybe there's a shortage, actually it's none of its problem. It's you as a business owner, that is your problem, because you are the owner of that shop. So I'm not saying that Excel is the villain here, but the process of how the business is running, that is the problem. Now, every manual handoff introduces delay. Every delay produces inconsistency, and every inconsistency affects decision making. And eventually, the owner is making business decisions using incomplete information. So, for example, imagine as a business owner or the owner of the corner mart orders 50 cartons of milk because they think because they think that they are almost running out. Only to come and discover someone forgot to update yesterday's deliveries. So that's money tied up unnecessarily. You are not going to throw that milk away, but maybe you could have used that money to restock something that is running out today. But you have restocked milk yesterday and you have restocked milk today. So that is money that is going now to sleep idle there, waiting until when it will be used. Or even worse, a customer wants your best selling product and it's unavailable. That's not just an inventory issue. That's lost. You will lose money because you don't have that product. And even the customer, you will lose their trust, because I can't keep on coming to your shop and you tell me imeisha, or we have run out. I'll actually become tired and move on to the next shop that I think maybe they have the item. So now let's come to our favorite part, and I'm taking away the architect's badge. And what am I going to do? I am giving you that badge or hat. You wear it as someone who is in this session, and I'm kindly encouraging, how is it called? Engagement. Let's engage in the chat box because I'm almost asking you a question. And so now you are the architect. What would you ask the business owner before designing anything? Because this is what I'm saying. Now, imagine now that Conamat has hired you and not AWS. So before you draw anything, before you write any code, line of code, what's the first conversation you are having with the owner? Kindly let me see the answers in the chat box. I'm looking at the chat box and I can't see any answers. If you're not going to write in the chat box, I may pick people randomly. Yeah, we are 22 participants. I'm going to pick someone. If I pick you, kindly unmute. I'm going to pick out Karanja. Kindly unmute and tell us if you have been hired by Conamat. What would you ask the business owner before designing anything? Just a question. You don't have to explain it. Just what would you ask them first? Yes, thank you, Karanja. Go on.
Okay, so I would like to know. So, how do they know the items that are going out of stock? So, how often do who are the providers or the people who supply to them, and how do they get their supplies, and what method they use for them to get the supplies? How do they order for the new supplies? Then maybe how do they track their sales or currently? So how do they want to improve from the current state they are in? So which is their baseline to where they want to be in the future. So maybe those are some of the things I would like.
Thank you, Karanja. I said there's no wrong answer. Yes. So those are some of the questions that you may ask as an architect. I'm going to ask Lorraine to kindly unmute and give us an example maybe of a question that, or maybe what they would like to know from the owner of the business before designing anything. Lorraine Boyo. Anita, maybe you can unmute and tell us. Okay, maybe they're not ready to talk. So we will continue. So you can see what just happened. None of, maybe like Karanja has said, or from whatever he has highlighted, he hasn't spoken about any AWS service. He was just about understanding the business. And that's exactly what architects do. So now let's translate those conversations into engineering language. Now, the business speaks its outcomes. So the owner will give you some of the requirements they need, and they will give those requirements in terms of business. Like, this is what I want my business, or maybe these are some of the solutions that I'm looking for in terms of the problems that I have at the moment. So first, they will say that they want few stockouts. For you, as an architect, you translate that into a technical language and say that we need low stock detection. And architecturally, that means that we need to have an automated monitoring and notifications system. Okay, So because there's the only way you'll know about stocks running out, you need for it to be monitored, the movement. Like we have sold 5 kgs, 10 kgs remaining. Is it low stock? If it's a yes, maybe they send an alert. The system sends an alert, maybe to your email or even to your SMS. Now, notice that we still haven't selected a service yet, and we have identified a capability. Another example is they want to keep costs under control. Now, for you as an architect, you'll say, you'll translate it into a language that avoid paying for infrastructure that's sitting idle. What is the architectural direction that will take? You consider managed services or pay-per-use where appropriate. So business requirements drive technical requirements, and technical requirements, they influence now the architecture. And that is the bridge between business and cloud engineering. So now that we understand what Conamat needs, let's finally look at the choices available to us. So as an architect, you may have maybe 3 infrastructural decisions or architectural decisions that you have to make. One, you may decide to go with the traditional infrastructure that is using EC2. Or you may choose containers. Option B, you may choose containers and use ECS Fargate, or maybe choose serverless and use services like Lambda, DynamoDB, etc. And I want to be very intentional here. I am not telling you which is the best, because that's not how architecture works. If architecture had one correct answer, I'm very sure that most of us will be out of business or out of jobs. So we are going to evaluate each option against Conamat's needs. So let's start with the most traditional option, the EC2. And EC2 gives us something very valuable, control. And some engineers or some architects, they love being in control. Like they can be able to manage the operating system. They can be able to control the runtime. They want to configure networking by themselves. They want to decide capacity and even maybe decide patching schedules. That sounds powerful, and it is. But someone owns that responsibility. Somebody purchases services, and somebody monitors instance health, or even plans capacity, or even responds when CPU decides to become dramatic at 2 a.m. So EC2 isn't bad. I'm not saying it's bad or it's a bad choice. It's actually an excellent choice for many workloads, but especially predictable workloads requiring deep control. But now the question is, does it fit Conamat's requirements? And does Conamat require that kind of or that level of responsibility? So before we even answer that question, let's move to the next infrastructure so that we can do a comparison. Now, we have another option, which is containers. ECS Fargate sits in between in the middle. So we are still working with containers. Our application can be packaged consistently. That is a tick. But AWS removes the responsibility of managing the underlying servers. So we have reduced infrastructure operations, but we are still managing services like tasks, container images, or even scaling policies. Now, this becomes particularly attractive when an organization already has container expertise, because you cannot introduce such kind of an infrastructure and maybe your team has no expertise even in, or they don't know even how to start a Docker image, or moving everything into Lambda just because serverless is popular may actually increase complexity. Choices also may depend on your team's capability. Now, architecture should fit the people operating it, and that's what I've just said, and not just the technology itself. So now let's look at the architectural. Most people maybe probably expected me to choose, but I'm not choosing any architecture today, so it's not my choice currently. And instead of managing servers, we focus more on code, events, and managed services. So we choose whatever we choose. Now, for example, when it comes now to corner mat, variable, the system doesn't need to run 24/7, right? Now, we have limited infrastructure as well as cost sensitivity. But let me say this, presentations, they end or they stop here, like serverless wins, but not so fast. And this is why I'm saying that every architecture gives us something and asks us to give up something. And here we gain operational simplicity if we are using serverless, but we accept a different programming and operational model. So we have less control over the underlying compute. Data modeling also changes when using DynamoDB. But serverless is not magic, and it's a trade-off. And so let's see what the architects in this room would choose. For example, so serverless is not that cheap as people say, oh, serverless is cheap. We will look into that as we go on. Why I'm saying serverless is actually not that cheap as people make us believe. So now we have the choices here. We have the infrastructure or the architectures. We have A, EC2, we have B, containers, and C, serverless. Now, all of us, we have had the business, unless for those who have joined late, we have seen the requirements and we have seen the three possible approaches, that is the architectures. Now, I want you to make a call. Okay? So I would like you guys to tell me in the chat box, which architecture would you choose for this business, the corner mat business? If it's EC2, you can write A, for containers B, and for serverless C. I'm going to give us 1 minute to interact in the chat box and give our answers. There is no wrong answer. Okay, as I have said, there is no best architecture. Guys, A or B or C, which architecture would you choose for corner mat? Okay, Derek says it fits the business and technical requirements. Thank you for your answer, Derek. Any other try? PN is saying A. Any other? Who is for B? Who is saying containers? Karanja A. Alexandria C. Now, allow me to pick PN. I don't know your full name, but kindly if you can unmute and tell us, maybe give us a one sentence as to why you would choose traditional infrastructure for the for corner mat.
Hi Belinda, as you mentioned, the control I think means as a small business owner, I want to more control over the things, so that is why I choose A.
As a business owner, like the architect.
I am
Because
thinking, I mean,
the
as an
business
architect, I am
owner.
thinking about the business owner.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And Karanja, why would you choose A?
For me, I think the assumption is this business is a new business and they are still starting out. So I want us to start from a point where we have control and then we can learn more about the business. So then from there we can decide scalable business, because currently I think EC2 give you that control and then you can be able to learn more about business and then you can scale from there. So it is a good starting point for me, the EC2.
Okay, thank you. And Alexandre, maybe a reason why you picked serverless? Okay, Akumu is saying, depending on the scale of operation of the business, for a startup, he goes for C, for an SME, he goes for B, and for a massive one, he goes for A. Okay. That's great. So you have you are weighing your options depending on the size of the business. Thank you so much, guys, for your answers. And if you can notice something beautiful here, we have not like gone for the favorite AWS services. We have just defended decisions using maybe the business requirements. And architecture decisions should come from reasons and not preferences. And so that brings us to one of the hardest truths in cloud, which is there is no best architecture. I don't know if you agree with me on this. Let me know in the chat box if it's a yes or no. There is no best architecture. So why am I saying this? There is only an architecture that is more appropriate for a particular set of requirements and constraints. So if Konamart suddenly became a national supermarket chain, our decisions might change. And that's why like someone like Akumu has given as options, right? Like he would choose C if it's a startup, an SME if it's a B if it's an SME, and if it's a big business, he would go for A. I think that's what he said. So if this business grows, you may find yourself, maybe you started with serverless, you may find yourself now leaning using serverless to container. If regulations require specific database behavior, our decisions might also change. Now, the architecture didn't become wrong. It doesn't mean now that the architecture that we chose first for the business is entirely wrong, and now we have to change the architecture. No, it just means that the requirements have changed. So how do architects compare their choices objectively? Now, on how we have here, and I have compared it on the three architectures that we have seen, the traditional infrastructure, the containers, and the serverless. Now, when it comes to operational effort, EC2 asks more from your operations team. So that is going to be high. Fargate reduces that burden. So it's medium because you have, maybe it's like a 50-50 thing, although I don't know if there's, I don't think there's that when it comes to running in infrastructure on cloud, but there is that maybe reduced burden in terms of operational, of operations. Then when it comes to serverless, that it reduces infrastructure management way further because it's managed. Okay, so more control isn't automatically better, and it simply means more responsibility. And also serverless doesn't mean now it's way better because the operational effort is way below. Now let's also look at something like scalability. Scalability is it requires planning and configuration. For containers, it supports service scaling, and for serverless, it scales automatically based on the events. So please don't leave this room saying serverless is always cheaper. You remember I quoted that in our previous slide. This is because it's one of the internet's favorite half-truths, and cost depends actually on workload. Usage patterns also matter, and sustained workloads behave differently from intermittent workloads. So you can't expect maybe a business that is running on serverless 24/7, you can't say it's cheaper. It's going to cost you money, right? So if someone comes to you one day and tells you, hey, do you know serverless is cheaper? Just to ask them, depending on what workload. So that now you can start arguing your points from there. And if they don't have any answer, it means that they're just relying on the online half-truth, maybe looked at the differences in terms of workloads and all that. So the best architecture is often the one your team can also confidently build, operate, and also evolve. So after going through all these decisions, let me finally show you what I chose. And this is what Orina was talking about. So it is what actually drove the development of this session. And everything we have discussed until now has been deliberate. We have looked at the business problem, requirements, options, and trade-offs. So now this is the Smart Inventory Assistant, and it's a personal project, production inspired for educational purposes. And I built it to explore architectural decisions using Python, AWS, and Terraform. And it's not a production application used by Conamat. As I said, Conamat is a fictional store. So this project is my implementation of those ideas. The shop owner interacts with the Streamlit application, and they request through the API gateway. Lambda handles the logic, the business logic. DynamoDB stores the inventory and movement history. And then we have and Terraform makes the entire infrastructure reproducible. So instead of asking what services are here, let's ask the architect's question again. Why are they here? So every component exists because it solves a requirement. Now, for example, Lambda. Lambda, the requirement was variable workload, right? So the decision that I made was to use Lambda. Why? Because I don't need continuously running servers for this educational workload. Remember, this is something that was built for educational purposes. So I don't need this project to continue running if it's just for education. Now, it also has less control over the underlying compute environment. For DynamoDB, it's simple and known access patterns, and it manages scalability and straightforward access for inventory records. CloudWatch and SNS for the business doesn't want dashboards all day. They just want to know when action is needed. That is, they want to be notified when stocks run out, and then they can act on their end. So my architecture is basically just like a lucky accident. So it requires, Terraform gives us consistency, and it requires discipline actually across engineering workflow. So let's now challenge this architecture that I have just shown you, not as builders, but as architects. So many people meet the well-architected framework as 6 definitions they memorize for certifications. And we are going to look at those 6 pillars using the architect's lens. Now we have 6 pillars, which is we have operational, we have the operational excellence, we have security, reliability, we have performance, cost optimization, and sustainability. And each and every pillar handles different things. For operational cost, for operational excellence, the system can be, it asks the question of, can the system be operated consistently? And there you use tools like Terraform, you use observability tools, or even logging tools. Now, for the security pillar, it asks the question of permissions. Are permissions intentional, or who can access the system? What can they do? And also the least privilege requirements. Now, reliability pillar, what happens when something fails? So here also we will look into services like for monitoring, managed services, recovery thinking. We have to think all around that. For performance efficiency, it asks the question of, are we using resources appropriately for demand? That's when you look at things like automatic scaling, if it's really a requirement or not. Then cost optimization, infrastructure, and then sustainability. Are we avoiding unnecessary, always on resources where managed alternatives can make sense? Like, you don't have to have servers running all day if there is no kind of workload that is running, okay? So maybe you can look at other services that can take up that task easily. So these aren't just 6 separate checkboxes. They are 6 perspectives on one architecture. And here is where architecture becomes uncomfortable, actually. How? Because sometimes, imagine someone comes and tells you they need maximum security, they need maximum reliability, they need maximum performance. Everything for them is just maximum except for cost. They tell you, now, with all that, I just want minimum cost. But for everything else, they have said maximum. They want maximum performance. They want maximum security. They want maximum reliability. They want higher availability. But on all that, they want minimum cost. So that is not actually a requirement. From there, you as an architect, you are going to have migraines, because you're going to be thinking, this client wants they want high availability. They want maximum security. But at the same time, they want low cost. But on the architect's side, some of these things, they don't work like that, right? So the architecture works only on balancing the priorities. So high availability may increase costs. Running an architecture or running an infrastructure on one availability zone is not same as running the infrastructure on 2 availability zones, right? The cost will change. You'll not be paying for $20 for one availability zone and still pay $20 for 2 availability zones. So you have to balance that. Now, also more security controls can increase operational complexity. More performance can require more infrastructure investment. So you have to, as an architect, balance all this. Now, your goal is not to eliminate whatever the client has said. Your work is now just to work on trade-offs. So the goal is to make those choices that you're going to make on terms of the architecture, how it's going to be. You have to make them now consciously, and you have to know some of the trade-offs that you're going to make. And at this point, I am also going to go to another step of asking you a simple question, okay? Now, in terms of trade-off, I would like you to tell me if you would deploy this architecture as is. I've walked you through the architecture. This is what I worked on, right? But now you as an architect, looking at this architecture, and would you deploy it as is? I would like a yes or a no answer. We are all learning. And if it's a no, you can kindly tell us, maybe if it's a no, why, and maybe what would you add? Do we have any answers? Any answers? Would you deploy it as is? Even in capital letters, he has said yes. Okay. Do we have a no? Someone who has a no? Someone who has a no. I love challenges actually, and I would like to know why no, and maybe what would you change? Someone with a different answer? Okay, then, since we have a no, we have no. I will ask Felix Kuria, if you're in a position to unmute, you can unmute, and you have said yes, actually, kwanza in capital letters. Tell us why have you said yes?
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
I think I can deploy this architecture diagram because I think the backend is handled serverlessly, and I think it can work. And for this client, I think he or she is not worried about cost. If that is the case, I can deploy it.
Okay, and maybe would you, looking at it, would you add any service?
I don't think I can add anything.
So much for your answer. Gaturu, tell us why you said yes. Okay, Akumu, if you can unmute, or actually, or you're also one of the people who gave us an answer, and I don't understand if your answer is a yes or a no. Okay, Gaturu is saying it checks all the boxes for a well-architected framework. Thank you. Akumu, maybe if you can unmute, you can tell us if your answer is a yes or a no. Still analyzing. Thank you. Now, looking at all this, Kevin Kaoka, CloudFront, probably for rate limiting or caching. That will maybe add security element. Thank you. Thank you so much. And we can see that we don't have any security element here. Thank you. WAF, Karanja is saying they can add WAF. Any one of you who is in a position to unmute, they defend their answer. Gaturu, you can unmute and tell us the security element. We have several security services. Which in specific would you add and why? Or maybe Karanja, if you're in a position to unmute, tell us why you would add WAF.
So I think for me, before traffic goes to the API manager, so I hope we'll have a front at some point. So it will be a good security measure to protect the backend.
Okay. Nice. Thank you. So as you can all see, we have looked at all these in terms of the business requirements, the technical, and also the architectural decisions that we may make as architects. And I hope now from today, you will approach architecture conversations in the same manner from today, not by saying, let's add another AWS service, but by saying, let's identify the requirements first so that you can know what you're getting yourself into. And with that, let's return to where our story began. Now, Conamat's owner, she called us and she didn't ask for Lambda. She neither asked for DynamoDB and she neither talked about Terraform anywhere. And what she simply said is, can you help me run my business better? And throughout this session, we never started with any technology. We started with the problem, we listened to her, we looked at the requirements. What were her business requirements? We translated that in our architect's language, the technical. Then we got options of architecture, or use containers, or even use serverless. Then we looked at the trade-offs. If, for example, I choose EC2, what are some of the things am I going to handle if compared to if I chose Lambda? Now, we then reviewed that decision through the well-architected framework. We looked at the 6 pillars and what they do. And this is the work of an architect, and which means that you don't have to sit and collect AWS services. You don't need to know all the AWS services and collect them like trophies and put them there and say, now I am done, I know all the services. No. It's just about intentional decisions that create value. The next time someone tells you, let's use Lambda, maybe you are in a team and you have to use Lambda. You don't just say, let's do it. You ask why. Or maybe if someone says serverless is cheaper, ask them for which workload, okay? Or if someone says, this is the best architecture I have ever come across, just ask them according to which requirements, because it will differ, right? Now, AWS gives us hundreds of powerful building services. The well-architected framework helps us question our decisions, but neither of them replaces architectural thinking. So great architecture isn't about using more AWS services. It's about making better decisions for the business that we are serving. So if tomorrow someone approaches you and they have supermarket, maybe they have a very big supermarket, they run a supermarket and it has several chains of stores across the country. You are not going to implement their solution with what you did for Corner Mart, because Corner Mart was just a small mini mart, okay? And it's just one shop. So you cannot implement the same kind of architecture when you are approached by another supermarket which is big and it has several shops. It is simply because they are all supermarkets. No, the architecture is not going to be the same. So it's just, this is all about better decisions for the business that we are serving. Now, I think I have come to the end of the session without even realizing it, because the session has been very engaging. And if you allow me, I will share my LinkedIn as I receive any questions, if there may be any. Any questions? There is my LinkedIn URL. You can follow me on LinkedIn. I do more of these on LinkedIn, and we can interact more beyond this session. And yeah, I ask you guys questions. Orina, is our time done?
Thank you very much, Belinda. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I think my connection is a bit unstable, but thank you very much. This has been an amazing presentation, and it gives you a really good perspective. I've always thought of translating business requirements to this, but this one has put it in a very concise way. So thank you very much for this. And I think, yeah, this is why I wanted you guys to just meet Belinda and just see what she's able to do. And yeah, I'm seeing so far so good. And she has a lot more on her LinkedIn and stuff. I think I'll share my screen. Yeah, but she shared her LinkedIn there. So thank you very much. I think if you have any questions or if you want to maybe interact with her, you can reach out to her. She's also on, I think, on the WhatsApp group also. You can be able to reach out to her and get to her. Biggest thing beyond just the AWS architect, she's doing an amazing job in terms of just her presenting like technical things and upskilling. So you can reach out to her in terms of that. So that's really, really amazing. She's a community builder also. I think your first year, so congratulations. And yeah, and she's doing an amazing job so far. She's actually really inspiring me to do a bit more. I see we're already past time and I don't want to keep too much of your time. So I don't know how many people here are students. I don't know how many people are students here. I'll just make this announcement. I think it's really important to do this, and it's an amazing thing that AWS is doing. We'll probably delve into this more and get more Kenyans, and I think Sub-Saharan Africa, if anything, to be able to be part of this. So what it's about is the student rewards for AWS Builder Center. So Builder Center is builder.aws.com. It's a place where you can write articles, interact with people, read articles also, and learn a lot about AWS. So previously they were using Dev, but now they have their own dedicated one. And this one, we also use it for community builders ourselves, AWS heroes, and also student builder groups. So here, one of the things I've said is they're able to give a lot of things to students if you take part in it, right? So one of the fastest is verifying yourself as a student. Then you unlock a reward of 12 months of premium skills build access of 900 courses, hands-on labs, and certification prep, which is really amazing, and game-based learning. So if you're a student, I think first thing you should do, just go to Builder Center and sign up and just go through this whole process. We'll try and make it easier for you if we can and walk you through it so that you can access this. And this is a one step for you to even become a student builder leader or a community builder if you're doing this. Once you do that, you get premium access and a few badges and AWS credits. We'll talk about this later on. So I'll just share this link, go through it. Then I think we'll be able to like demystify it more later on. Zoom has a bit of an issue here. There we go. Go read about it and see what you can be able to get from there. Beyond that, also, I see Kevin's also here. Kevin, you can say hello. Then I think we can, I don't know if there are any more announcements, but we can kind of wrap up from there. Hi, Kevin.
Hi. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And yeah, happy to be here. Thank you, Belinda. You're doing an amazing job with all things technical. I'm also quite challenged. I don't know whether I have the highway to. I just breathe. It's already Security Friday. I think you have a day. Every day you have something technical to share with us, and we really appreciate it. And usually go in and look at it. You put in a lot of thought and heart into the content that you put out. And I think there's a time we met at AWS New Voices. So yeah, keeping on in terms of building skills. Thank you so much, Mark, for bringing amazing speakers in the user group, and hope ready to always work together, all the user groups and the AWS community. And also for students, please don't take advantage of what Mark has shared, because trust me, premium skill builder, AWS credits, what else do you need to go out there and build on AWS? You don't have any excuse to not do that. And if you don't have an AWS account, what are you waiting for? Go look at the well-architected tool. I don't know whether, I think I joined a little later. I don't know whether Belinda mentioned about the well-architected tool inside the AWS Management Console. It usually brings out all these aspects around the business questions. Yeah, I didn't want to answer any question because I wanted to leave it all for the learners to answer those questions. But I love the way it was very engaging and how you engage the audience. All the best, and thank you.
Thank you. Actually, that's a very astute observation, because she's part of New Voices, and how she started her presentation was a story, which is what we learned on Thursday. So actually, once she just started with the story, I was like, okay, this is, I see. And so she's really implementing. So yeah, good job, Belinda, on that. And it was actually captivating from the get-go. I love the presentation and the story of it. So yeah, I think they'd be really proud of what you've done so far. And I've taken notes so that the next time I do also a presentation, I'll be able to start from there. Also, Kevin was also, it's not, let me, stop sharing.
I have to hold my breath. I don't know what you want.
Yeah.